so much talk about receivers, whether it's top 10 lists or guys, with trade speculation. I want to look at some guys that have been locked up for the long term and, talk about the kind of season that they're going to have. Because to me, right off the bat, starting with the guy who's number one on that scout coach executive list, Justin Jefferson, he's intriguing. Not so much, we know what we're getting with Justin Jefferson, but he's intriguing because of the quarterback room he's got to work with in Minnesota. So he signs that 4-year contract extension worth $140 million, and his receiving yard number, as you see on your screen there, coming in at 1275.5. Now, last year, barely cracked the 1,000-yard mark. By the way, that was in 10 games. So if he stays healthy, one would think he goes over 1275.5. But so many questions about Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy and their ability to get it to him. Do you do anything with this market?
I got to admit something here, Joe. I may or may not have bought a Sam Darnold rookie card last week for the simple reason that he's got wonderful wide receivers to throw to for the first time in his life, and I love the offense that he's being put in here. I do think Jefferson goes over this mark. I think he's worth every bit of the 4-year, $140 million contract. He went for 170 yards with Nick Mullins as his quarterback in the last game of the season. He averaged over 100 yards per game, and it was Dobbs and Mullins throwing the football to him in the majority of those. I like Jefferson quite a bit over this total. He's someone who did not get injured prior to last year. Last year was the first time we saw him get hurt. And I still think Sam Darnold's not bad. I feel like he got just absolutely the raw end of the deal with Adam Gase and the Jets, goes to Carolina, plays there for a couple games, cup of coffee. I think he could have been a very viable quarterback in San Francisco. May or may not have bet him to win Super Bowl MVP at plus 250 or 250 to 1 last year. I kind of think I'm probably one of the people higher on Sam Darnold than most out there, but I do think Justin Jefferson goes over that 1275.5 yard mark. If he plays 14 games, he's over that number.
It's wild because usually I find myself in your shoes defending Sam Darnold and saying, guys, he was set up for failure with the Jets and the whole seeing ghosts fiasco. I do think he's the better of the two options in Minnesota right now. I'm incredibly low on J.J. McCarthy, so I like Darnold more than McCarthy, and I think with Kevin O'Connell, that Darnold could have a decent system there. It's just a matter of, A, staying healthy. It's one thing to think Darnold to be formidable. Better than Nick Mullins, better than Josh Dobbs. I certainly don't think he's going to have this Vikings team anywhere near the wild card situation.
I'm curious if Justin Jefferson, if the Vikings have a decent season where they're above 500, even probably sneaking into the playoffs, is Justin Jefferson a good bet for Offensive Player of the Year? Because I kind of feel like he's going to be the workhorse of that offense.
If they win 9, Mike, tell me what you think. I think Justin Jefferson could break the quarterback streak and maybe be in the MVP discussion if they win 9, because I don't think this team, frankly, is going to win any more than 6.
I love the fact that me saying Sam Darnold as a 250 to 1 MVP shot's not the craziest thing said in this segment. No, he's not winning MVP. He's not winning MVP, Joe. Let's back it off a little bit there.
I said Offensive Player of the Year.
Offensive Player of the Year, I can get behind. I can get behind that. I do think that he's someone who has to be in the conversation. If he has a full season, he is going to be right up there from a yardage perspective, from a touchdown perspective. And this is a Vikings team that's going to have to chuck the football around the yard. They're not very good on the defensive side. And you look at the other offenses inside their division. It's okay. We got to play Green Bay. We got to play Detroit. And we got to play a revamped Chicago offense. Guess what? You're going to need to score some points, Minnesota. To me, that all favors Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and they're going to find themselves trailing early and often, so the passing game will be front and center for Minnesota. In that division, final 45 seconds here, there's a guy I love. I think you love him too, since we love the Lions so much. Amon-Ra St. Brown. He might not go for 1,500 yards again. He might, but I like him over 1250.5, and I'm very skeptical and very wary of playing these overs. Usually I'm an under or stay away guy. I think this is the one over I'm going to play on receiver totals.
Yeah, I can get behind it too. My biggest concern is actually the rest of this offense, right? Does he get the workload consistently? But last year he did. Last year wasn't an issue, and you had Laporta, you had Montgomery, you had Gibbs, you had everybody there, and he got 15 target games still. So yeah, if anything for me, it's over on St. Brown.
Yeah, and you lose Reynolds, which obviously, Laporta and Gibbs might be the number 2 and 3 targets there. But in terms of that receiver room, Amon-Ra St. Brown just head and shoulders above the rest. Let's keep going down the list because I imagine we can't be taking all these guys to go over. So let's see what we think about A.J. Brown and the Philadelphia Eagles. Is he going to have a 1,300-yard season? Although, Wyatt, I'm seeing 1250 on the screen. I'm seeing 1,300 in the notes here. What's the number?
It is 1250. Wyatt did not update Fun fact, I
Playing
tried
too much college football last night?
I tried to do this for a segment last month on primetime. We never got to it, so I was copying everything over.
And that was the number a month ago?
That was the number a month ago, and it updated now to 1250.
Okay, so 1250, same number as the other Brown, the St. Brown, Amon-Ra. Do you like AJ to go over this? I mean, obviously a lot of people have their questions and concerns and critiques, whether they're warranted or not, of Jalen Hurts and his quarterback situation there. Some people, are buying him more as an athlete. Others, like myself, I think he has a turnover problem, but I do think he is also a great quarterback in this league, top 11, top 12 for sure. Do you think he can get it to AJ for more than 1250?
This is one where I take a pause. It's hard to just say I'm going to take a stone under on one of these top receivers because they are just so very good at what they do. But I'm not betting A.J. Brown to the over. I'll say that much. There's enough reason for me to be like, well, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit. First off, he is someone who gets very, very hot-headed at times. We've seen him get thrown out of games. We've also seen him have injury issues through seasons. You've got Devonta Smith on the other side, who is a legit wide receiver number 2. I don't think he's a number 1, but he is a legit number 2 there. And then it's the addition of Saquon Barkley. What's this offense going to look like with Saquon Barkley in it? Are we going to see them move away from the pass in a lot of situations? Is this going to become a more run-heavy offense? Are they going to be down in a bunch of games where you need to be throwing the football? One of the reasons I love Justin Jefferson's over, they're going to be throwing the football all the time. I can't say the same about this Eagles team. I'm not sure they're going to be throwing it all the time. To me, it's A.J. Brown as an under or a pass. I'm not in love with it enough to go to the under and get to the window here, but it's not what I'm taking to the over. So I'll pass on the A.J. Brown number.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on this. First off, what you said about Minnesota, like I said, they're going to be behind early and often in a lot of games this year, which is going to make them have to throw the ball. Philadelphia, probably going to be in the lead, I would say, the majority of the minutes that they play this season. They already love to run the ball. They have a quarterback who loves to run the ball. Now you bring Saquon Barkley into the equation. And Barkley also, I love this guy, right? I'm a Penn State fan and a Giants fan, so it breaks my heart to see Saquon leave Big Blue for the Eagles. But he is just as effective in the passing game as he is in the running game. So he might very well take some targets away from A.J. Brown. Of course, he's got another top 15, top 20 receiver in Devonta Smith, who's going to get some, his fair share of targets himself. Yeah, I want to lean under on this, but to your point, he's a stud, so that just makes it a stay away for me. I want to go to your Dolphins here now, and Jaylen Waddle. I didn't really love this contract, to be completely honest. I worry about Waddle's durability. I mean, you look at his slight frame, and, I wonder if he can stay healthy down there in Miami for a long time. It's a lot of, what was it, $84.75 million on the deal. Wasn't 75 of it guaranteed? I just didn't like the guaranteed money that Miami threw at him. What are your thoughts on the contract? And then does Waddle get the 1,000-yard season or 1,001 yards that he needs to go over?
I can't take this slander, Joe. As someone who owns a Waddle T-shirt, the little just right like that, I cannot handle the slander here on Jaylen Waddle. I love him. I think he is a legit number 1 wide receiver. I think he's almost a 1B right now in his career. And I love the contract. And I'll tell you why, Joe. You're not going to have Tyreek Hill around in 3 years. So you have to kind of get that middling deal to bridge over from this Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle era to just the Jaylen Waddle area. Tyreek already, 30 years old, got 2 more years on his contract. To me, he's someone you move off of in those 2 years. You trade him away, get whatever assets you can back for him, and you move Waddle into that number 1 position, and you still have him under contract at what is going to be considered a cheap price for a number 1 wide receiver in 3 years, because you're going to be paying a heck of a lot more than, 27 a year, 28 a year in 3 years for a number 1 than you would now. So I like the deal from Miami's perspective because of those reasons. I also like the over here on Waddle on 1,500 yards. Tyreek takes up so much attention in this offense that allows Waddle to be able to get going. Tyreek missed games. When he missed games, we saw Waddle's production dip a little bit because you saw offenses be able to roll over to him. I think this is just a more well-rounded Miami offense this year. I don't think you're going to be able to see them roll over if you do have Tyreek have any type of injury issue this season. So I would lean toward the over here. I'm not a season-long over guy, though, either, Joe, so I would not bet this personally. I'm not going to get to the window here, but if I was playing anything, it'd be the over on Waddle.
Well, what you're betting on here is his health, right? Because his production is not a concern. I mean, last year he barely crossed this mark, just like he barely crossed it in his rookie season. In his rookie year, he did it in 16 games. Last year in 14. When he played a full 17 in 2022, he eclipsed the 1350 mark. So the bet here is essentially a handicap on Waddle's health. I don't think there's any doubt if he plays 16, 17 games that he's going to cross this number. And that's where, my concern comes in with his durability. Now, he's only missed, 4 games in 3 seasons. So he hasn't really shown us that there are many injury red flags there. Last year, he missed 3 games. I worry that something could be coming. So we'll see. If Waddle stays out there, though, he seems like a sure thing to go over this mark. Another young guy who got a payday, I want to say the same exact time as Waddle, Nico Collins down in Houston. And I'm curious now that Stephon Diggs comes in, Tank Dell should have a pretty intriguing season. Does that take away from Nico going over 1,050.5 yards here?
It's tough. It's tough with Nico because you don't know what you're going to get from Tank Dell right out of the gate, right? He's coming back off an ACL injury, which was midseason, so it's going to take some time for him to really gear up. Diggs is, I don't know who the one is there. Is it Diggs? Is it Collins? Is it Dell when he's healthy? Like, I don't even know who the go-to guy from a target perspective is, and that makes it almost impossible for me to bet these props, right? Because I want to, when you're betting props, specifically season-long props, it's all about usage. It's all about how many targets are we going to get? How many yards per target do we need to eclipse said number? I have no clue what the target share is going to be like in Houston. For me, that's one of the difficult parts about playing this. I will take over 5.5 receiving touchdowns for Nico Collins, though. I do think he's going to be a big red zone target for him. And by the way, he can blow any play out of the water. He can have that 80-yard long touchdown. I think he's going to be the deep ball guy for them. He is a big target. So if I was going to play anything here, it's over 5.5 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you hit it from that angle because the touchdowns, I think 5.5 is low. Now, I know in his first 2 years he only went for 1 and 2, but last year as the number 1 guy went for 8. This year, it's intriguing because I don't know who the best receiver on that team is, whether it's Diggs, Collins. This is a 1A, 1B situation if you ever saw one. But I think based on just chemistry and just knowing where a guy is going to be downfield, I think Collins will probably get the most targets because you can't dispute how much C.J. Stroud loves this kid and how comfortable he was in year 1 throwing to this kid. So I certainly think that going over the yards is my lean. But if there's a play on this board, man, I'm with you. It's the touchdowns.
And you talked about the numbers for Collins with touchdowns year 1 and year 2. The big difference, C.J. Stroud wasn't there. The chemistry that you mentioned between these two is huge. I'm not as worried about the 1 touchdown and 2 touchdown seasons. I'm more focused on what did he do with the current quarterback that he has. Oh, by the way, in the offensive scheme they're running, because the OC switched last year as well. So you're going to get the same scheme back with the same quarterback. Last year's numbers to me are much more predictive than those previous 2 seasons because of the consistency you have from both the quarterback and OC position this year.
Absolutely. Final 40 seconds or so here. Calvin Ridley signed a 4-year deal this offseason. He's the only guy whose total is coming in under 1,000. It's just 875.5. What kind of year do you see Calvin Ridley having?
It's under or nothing for me with Ridley. Like I don't know if it was his fault or if it was Lawrence's fault, but whoever's fault it was, that was a very bad season for him in Jacksonville, an offense he should have flourished in. I don't trust Will Levis as a quarterback, and because of that, it's under the 875 or a pass.
Mayo and coffee, eating bananas with the peel on. I don't trust Will Levis at all either. I'm with you. Probably a pass for me, but I think the Tennessee Titans are probably going to be a dumpster fire here in year 1 under the new regime.